Hello and welcome back to the Library of Ruina Ranked. In this video we'll be covering Xiao, Yan, and the purple tier. Our first page is Raging Storm Love. This is a single-use 5-cost mass attack rolling 3-7, 8-20 slash, both inflicting 2 burn on hit. Compared to Raging Storm Harm, you move the power onto 2 with the 3-7 die, and some of the burn gets shuffled around. Of course, the biggest difference is that you don't need to set up Raging Storm Love, which is significantly better. The power on 2 is also a lot better because there are way fewer pages with strong 2s than strong 1s. All these factors make Raging Storm Love an A+. Beyond is a 3-cost rolling 6-9, 5-8 block, 3-8 block counter, and it draws 2 pages on use. 2 pages is very good utility as we've seen before, and while the lack of damage isn't great, it's still good enough for an A+. Xiao 2 is next. This is a 2-cost rolling 6-9 block counter, 3-8 slash counter, with the slash inflicting 1 burn on hit. This page was really hard for me to evaluate. You can redirect pages towards you with this, but you're still at the whims of the enemy's speed die order. The power being on the first die is good, but it being an offensive die is a bit unfortunate. You can kind of think of this like a 2-cost with 2.5 6-9 block dice and a 3-8 slash counter, as that's often how it'll play out, especially if the enemy's pages are favorable for you. But the inconsistency is what makes it hard for me to give it higher than a C+, but please let me know what you think about this page, as well as Perry when it comes up in the comments. BC is another 2-cost. This one rolls 7-10 slash 4-8 block, with the slash giving the user 2 strength next scene on hit. 2 strength is a pretty decent amount, but the rolls aren't quite where I want them to be. I do like how the slash die has most of the power since you really want that one to hit, and that makes this page a B-. Jin Ni is a 4-cost rolling 15-28 pierce and it inflicts 2 burn to all enemies on hit. I'm not a fan of this page. Compared to Blazing Strike, you get a 1 higher roll average, which doesn't really matter with such a high average roll anyways, and the burn is spread out instead of concentrated, which is worse in my opinion, but you don't need to wait to emo through to use it. Of course, you get Blazing Strike at the end of Urban Nightmare, and our pages need to be doing a lot more at the end of Star of the City, so this page is just an F. Chi Wen is next. This 3-cost rolls 5-9 slash, 6-8 block, 5-9 blunt. Both offensive dice inflict 3 burn to target and self on hit. On combat start, the user takes 10 less damage from burn this scene, and on use, if the user has burn, they recover 4 HP and gain 2 protection next scene. 6 burn is a good starting point, and all of the pieces of this page work together quite synergistically. I think you need to be able to consistently trigger the on-use effect for this page to be good, and to that end, I don't think Chi Wen is enough as the only source of self-burn in most cases, especially since the burn it inflicts will quickly outdamage the combat start effect, heal, and protection. I think this page is just a C+ if you can't trigger the on-use consistently, but it jumps up to a B if you can. Fiery Dragon Slash is a 2-cost rolling 5-8 slash, 3-7 pierce, 4-7 block, 3-7 slash counter. The slash inflicts 2 burn on hit, and the counter inflicts 1 burn on hit. Compared to Greek, you lose the dice type consistency, but gain the burn, counter die, and half a power on the block. My typical evaluation is that a 3-7 counter die is worth about 1 light, and so Fiery Dragon Slash certainly delivers on the value. I think this page is actually slightly better than Greek relative to when you get it, and so this page gets an S. Coordinated Assault is a 3-cost rolling 5-8 blunt, 5-9 block, 4-7 pierce, and on combat start it gives 1 strength, 2 protection, and 2 stagger protection to a random other ally. This page is a bit weaker than I'd like, having a lower roll average than other utility 3-cost pages like Emotional Turbulence or Concentration, and the effect isn't stellar. The effect's targets being random hurts even more, so I think this page is just a C-. Distorted Blade is a 7-cost mass summation rolling 18-33 slash that inflicts 2 erosion on hit. This is a fantastic mass attack. 7 light is a huge price to pay, but the roll average is quite high, erosions will have the strongest status inflictions, especially when it gets applied very early into the scene, and it's also reusable. All these factors make this page an S-. Bilful Brands is next. This is a 3-cost rolling 4-8 slash, 6-10 pierce, 5-9 block, with the pierce inflicting 2 erosion on hit. This is another fantastic page. Again, 2 erosion is really good, and the rolls here are also quite strong. Having the strongest die be the one that inflicts the status defect is good, so this page gets an S. Lock isn't so lucky. This is a 4-cost rolling 7-9 block, 12-19 blunt, and the blunt destroys the opponent's next die on clash win. While this page clashes like a 3-die page with a really strong 2 and 3, the damage isn't there, which lowers the evaluation of the page quite a lot. It's similar to Energy Beam, and while luck is definitely significantly stronger, you also get at the end of the chapter, so it's only a C+. Ominous Powers is 0 cost, and on play the user immediately restores up to 3 light, but loses the same amount of light they restored at the start of the next scene. This is a very unique page. It's a fantastic panic button, and it lets you restore light without needing to use your precious speed dice slots. Of course, you do need to pay back the loan, but since you determine when you use the page, the utility ends up being incredible and good enough for this page to be an S. Sword of Volition rolls 3 to 7 blunt, 3 to 7 slash, 2 to 5 pierce. The cost is equal to the user's max light, and on use, all dice on the page gain power equal to the user's emotion level, and they restore all light. Some people swear this page is the nuts. I don't really see it. At best, it rolls 8 to 12, 8 to 12, 7 to 10, which is quite good, but not for 8 or 9 light. I can't see any good use case for this page, so it's just an F. Our next page is Blind Faith. This is a 3 cost rolling 6 to 9 block, 6 to 10, 6 to 10 slash. On use, it restores 1 light, but all dice on the page lose 2 power. Basically, this is a slightly harder to cast 2 cost rolling 4 to 7, 4 to 8, 4 to 8, which is pretty good, but nothing incredible. The magic is in the little things that make this page better occasionally. If you have cost randomizers, this page becomes stronger because of the light restore, and in receptions with a power null, this can be a very powerful page. Even without those things, it's still a pretty good page at a B. The Will of the City is a 2 cost rolling 3 to 7 block, 3 to 7 slash, and on use, the user restores 3 light and draws a page. This is the best non-exclusive page in the game. As we've seen, pages that can both restore light and draw pages are generally extremely strong, and this is the most versatile of them all. It's the hardest to cast, but it has a block die, doesn't require charge, singleton, or any other hoops to cast. This is an easy S+. Serpent Sword Technique is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 6, 2 to 4 slash, and draws a page on use. Compared to Draw of the Sword, you're paying 1 more light for a 2 to 4 slash. That's pretty awful considering you get this page an entire chapter later and it's not even strictly better. This is just an F. Violet Blade is a 3 cost rolling 5 to 15 slash, 3 to 7 slash counter, and power affects the slash die twice. This page is just alright. Having power affect the die twice means that the damage is like a 2 offensive die page, but since it only has a single die, the clashing suffers quite a bit, especially since doubling the power often ends up being overkill since the base roll range is so high already. It can be used to achieve some extremely high damage numbers for achievements and stuff, but for general use it's just a C-. Snake Slit is next. This 2 cost rolls 2 to 4, 2 to 4 slash, 4 to 8 evade. The first slash inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on combat start, the user's slash dice power is boosted by 2 for the scene. Without any other assistance, this page rolls 4 to 6, 4 to 6, 4 to 8, which isn't amazing, but of course the slash dice power is given to all your other pages, which obviously makes it better. With just 2 snake slits, you're getting a pretty great deal, and that makes this page an A in my books. Snake's Prey is the 1 cost rolling 3 to 5, 3 to 7 pierce. The 2 inflict 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on combat start, when inflicting bleed with combat pages this scene, inflict an additional stack. This page is like a combination of Dark Cloud and Violent Flame, and like those pages, this one isn't great. The roll range is awful, and while you can probably inflict upwards of 8 to 10 bleed with this page, you need to have the perfect setup, and you'd rather just cast a page that can clash well or provide better utility. It's just an F. Laceration on the other hand is quite good. This 3 cost rolls 5 to 9, 5 to 8 pierce, 6 to 8 block, 3 to 6 pierce counter. The 1 inflicts 3 bleed next scene and the scene after on hit, the 2 inflicts 1 feeble next scene on hit, and the counter die inflicts 2 bleed next scene on hit. 6 bleed is a pretty crazy amount, and the roll range is quite good as well. The counter die's base is slightly below average, but it more than makes up for it by inflicting bleed. This is a fantastic bomb page, especially in pierce focused decks, and is an S. Venomous Fangs is a 2 cost rolling 4 to 8, 3 to 7 pierce, 3 to 8 block. The 1 inflicts 3 bleed next scene on hit, and the 2 inflicts 1 fragile next scene in the scene after on hit. Having equivalent rolls to Creek and very similar dice composition, this page brings up the power with 3 bleed and 2 fragile, both fairly potent status defects. It's not quite at the level of Broken Creek was in Urban Nightmare, but it's a solid role player and is an A. Strike Down is next. This 2 cost rolls 8 to 13 blunt, 5 to 6 block, with the blunt recovering 3 stagger resist on hit. I'm not too hot on this page. The rolls are just mediocre, and there isn't much utility either. It's not awful, but it's just a C-. Great Serpent's Impact is pretty awful though. This is a 2 cost rolling 2 to 6 block, 5 to 7, 3 to 6 blunt. The 2 recovers 3 stagger on hit, and on combat start, the user deals 2 bonus stagger damage with blunt attacks this scene. While the extra stagger damage is quite good, the rolls are just not there. Having a 0.6 lower roll average than Creek is pretty bad at this point, and the combat start effect doesn't bring it up past anything more than a D+. Duel is a 3 cost rolling 8 to 17 blunt, 5 to 9 4 to 8 block, 3 to 7 blunt counter. All of the non-counter dice reduce the power of the opponent's next die by 2. This is a pretty interesting page, but one that I quite like. The damage for a defensive focused page is quite high, and this can absorb a pretty crazy amount of damage since it can reduce up to 6 power. It's nothing fancy, just a solid A tier page. Serpentine Barrier is next. This is a 3 cost rolling 5 to 10, 4 to 10, 4 to 9 block counter. Of all the counter only pages, I think this one's the best by far. It's one of the best silver bullet pages in the game and provides an insane amount of defensive utility. The downside, of course, is that if at least 3 pages aren't targeting you, you end up wasting value, so sometimes your librarian will just not be targeted, but it's not a huge deal when you can just use other pages in that case. Unfortunately, since this is a purely reactive page, it can't be amazing, but it's good enough to be a B. Parry is a 2 cost rolling 4 to 10 evade counter, 3 to 7 blunt counter. Basically everything I said about Xiao 2 applies here, except the dice and rolls are worse. Under ideal circumstances, this is a really efficient page, but the floor is low enough for it to only get a C-. Identify Weak Point is a 3 cost rolling 6 to 9 block, 5 to 9, 5 to 9 slash, but on use, the offensive dice switch to the most effective type. This is a very simple page. If an enemy is slash injured, it'll swap to a different damage type, so it'll always be doing max damage. The rolls are pretty solid, but the lack of utility means this is just a B. Our last page today is Mirage Storm. This is a 7 cost mass individual rolling 4 to 9 slash, 4 to 9 blunt, 4 to 8 pierce. The slash deals 5 bonus damage on hit, the blunt deals 5 stagger damage on hit, and the pierce inflicts 3 bleed and 1 fragile this scene and next scene on hit. The pierce's effect is obviously the strongest by a mile, but all the effects are welcome additions. The cost is really high and the dice don't roll amazingly, so this mass might need some help, but as I've said before, mass attacks are inherently powerful, and this is no exception at an A-. In the next video, we'll be covering all the pages from the general receptions and Star of the City. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching.